Sidelines with Rob Browne. Talk sporty to me.
All right, good Thursday, man. Going into week 7 of the college football season, Rob Browne broadcasting live from Red River Ford Toyota in Wynne, Arkansas. Open Monday through Saturday, 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. Keep in mind the service department on Saturday, 7:30 in the morning till 12:30. Seeing a lot of people bringing their trucks and SUVs in, getting maintenance done. Duck season starts. In fact, this past Sunday, October 9th at 7:43 p.m. Central Time, Greenwich Mean Time, a group of us were sitting over at the Cherry Farm in Park in Arkansas, having a few road sodas, grilling out, and we heard that beautiful sound like breaking china. And it was the sound of hundreds of speckled-bellied goose, specks, flying in from up north, coming down here. The season starts October 29th, folks. Speckled-bellied goose season, 3 a day, limit 3 per hunter. Call now before midnight. Dudley Dawson is with us, hogville.net, on the ECS House Industries Razorback Report in the first segment. Gary Harris will check in segment number 2. Tide 100.9 WVUA TV 23 down in Tuscaloosa. Jimmy Hodge is with us up in Knoxville. And in hour number 2, Coach Jackie Sherrill will call in from Wimberley, Texas, where he lives between Austin and San Antonio, where Jimmy used to live. Jimmy lived in a lot of places working with Adidas over the years, and always love to have Coach Jackie unfiltered. Sherrill, love having him on. You will get the truth, and maybe he'll remember legendary Jack Crystal, 58 years, the voice of the Mississippi State Bulldogs. My favorite commercial, Jimmy and Dudley on the Bulldog Network. Jack Crystal would say, "Want to say hello to one of our sponsors, Ayoup's on the Square in Canton, Mississippi." I bet you Jackie Sherrill still has a maroon blazer or two. Thank you, Al Sherman up in Fayetteville, Bentonville, lives out there on the Pinnacle Golf Course. And I think Ayoup's on the Square in Canton, Mississippi. Proud sponsors of the Mississippi State Bulldogs. But a lot to talk about today in the next 2 hours. College football season going into the second half. It's going to get really, really fun. And follow us on Twitter at Sidelines_live, and we'll follow you. We're starting to really get after it on Twitter, social media. Go ahead and get started. Dudley, you have been so far right all along. The Arkansas coaches, the fans, hey, KJ Jefferson, don't run the ball so much. We know you're big. We know you're fast. Protect yourself. The team needs you. We need you in so many ways to be healthy. Malik Hornsby is good, but you are our starter. So, hey, talk about last weekend's game, the takeaway from the loss at Mississippi State. Now you got to get ready to go out there to Provo, Utah, and that is going to be a tough one. I think BYU was ranked 16th in the country. Got a lot of 23, 24, 25-year-old guys that took off a couple of years for their Mormon mission. I know one thing, they can ride a mountain bike, but let's talk about the Razorbacks right now on this ECS Razorback Report.
Well, they're sitting right where I thought they'd be right now. I had them 3-3 going into this BYU game, and I had bought into the Texas A&M hype. Still, Arkansas should have won that game, but didn't think that they would be able to contain either Alabama or Mississippi State. That turned out to be the truth. A lot of acrimony up here this week among the fans, who I think many, because they won 9 last year, just thought the inevitable 10 was going to come along. I had 7-5 to start the season. We'll see if they get to 7 now, but lots of injuries. Some coaching things that certainly the fans have questioned. And you've also, let's just be honest about this. This is a building program. Not going to say rebuilding, because they weren't really built anytime in this decade, but it's going to take some more talent, because Arkansas has some great individuals, but from 1 to 85, they're not where they need to be, in the top echelon of the conference. And talent, something you got to continue to work on, and also you got to recruit and you got to develop. That's at every school, not just an SEC one.
I think you had said it a number of times on the show when you're on with us about 1 through 44, Arkansas is pretty good. It's 45 through 85. And you look around at the top schools in the SEC, say / college football, it's that 2 and 3 deep, especially on the front seven on defense. The depth, and it's a quality of depth. It's not your second team, you're not any good. It's, you're thinking Sanders, comes up there to Arkansas, linebacker. He couldn't get on the field for a lot of playing time at Alabama, and now he's one of the top guys Pro Football Focus has for the upcoming draft, and he gets a bunch of sacks. But in your opinion, where's Arkansas ahead the most? Offensive line, defensive line, what position or positions?
Well, I think running back is their best position. They've got plenty of those, and certainly for the most part going into the season, the offensive line was given a lot of credit, a lot of experience coming back. I don't want to say they've underperformed, but I don't think they've overperformed either. They got beat at the line of scrimmage several times the other day. When you can't run on 3rd and 1, can't run on 4th and 1, it becomes an issue. And sometimes there's, reads on plays, such as Malik Hornsby made last week, that if he'd have taken the ball back out of a running back's stomach, he would have walked in. But it's just a matter of, as I say, continuing to put talent in there. One thing that kind of epitomizes what they're going through right here, to me, on defense right now is I look at 7 of the top 8 defensive backs that they expected to be coming back are gone. 2 of them are playing at LSU. 3 of them are out for the season. You've got another couple who are managing injuries and trying to get on the field but can't get on there for a full ball game. When you're there's a reason they're near last in both the SEC and in America in pass defense, and that's because they recruited well but haven't kept them. And then maybe that it's a situation that we're you talked about it, the third and fourth string guys, and that's what you're looking at right now, are just not experienced enough, just not talented enough. When you go from a defense that had many of the 15 super seniors that they had last year that played through injuries, I think sometimes there's a difference in being hurt and being injured. You have super seniors last year that got out there and just played anyway. I think that mentality, has to come back. But when you're playing experienced guys out there, you're going to get picked on, especially when you have coaches like Mike Leach, who has time not only to study Pirates and stuff, but to study defenses and see what he needs to do. And he's got a great quarterback, obviously, in Will Rogers.
Yeah. Well, I put out on Twitter, congratulations to Will Rogers for breaking the all-time SEC completion record that was previously held by Georgia's former quarterback, Aaron Murray. He did it in 24 fewer games. Instantly, some SA comes back and says, sure, that's going to happen when you throw the ball 50-plus times a game. Well, the deal is Will Rogers is a good quarterback. And Mike Leach in year 3 has those guys doing this stuff in their sleep. Impressive enough is the running game has gone up from 44 to 65, 105 yards a game. And Zach Arnett's defense, he is an underrated defensive coordinator. He's one of the better ones I see in the SEC. I think he does a great job with the talent that he has. And I think Mississippi State, Arkansas, that game is probably a different game with a healthy KJ Jefferson. But I'm with you about Arkansas. They still probably a couple of recruiting classes away from being a legitimate threat to win every time they line up. They're 3-3, 4-2. They're kicking themselves, I'm sure, over that Texas A&M game. But A&M, like they did last year, gets beat soundly at home by Mississippi State. And then the next week, Alabama comes in, they win. This year, they get beat soundly on the road at Mississippi State, then go on the road and go down to literally the last play, and arguably one of the worst play calls I've seen out of a coaching staff. That play made no sense, but I would have run the ball, and then you throw a ball 2 yards this side of the goal line. Doesn't make a lot of sense. Let's talk about KJ Jefferson's status right now. It's whatever you can tell us what it look like for Saturday.
Unless something new happens, he's going to play Saturday. They did a great job, I believe, and they could have played him. probably would have got cleared if he'd have done some things on Friday. But Coach Pittman made a decision that, may not endear himself to some people, but it certainly did to me. You don't put a kid's kid in jeopardy. And yes, he probably could have played, but especially in this day and age and the climate that we have now, when injuries are being focused on, or concussion protocol are being focused on. Although I will say that Coach Pittman has never mentioned the word concussion. He avoids that. He's going to be ready to go. And, the thing that I've always thought about KJ is he loves a challenge. Malik Hornsby came in last week, had some very good moments. And suddenly, you've got people, at least some segment of the population going, well, maybe this guy should be the guy. Well, that's the kind of thing that KJ gets up for. And they were playing a very good football team this weekend, but one that has given up a lot of yards rushing. So I suspect that we're going to see Arkansas line up, try to run the ball as much as it can, and obviously try to get the ball down the field. But this is a pivotal game. You don't really say that often in the seventh game of the season when it's 3-3 and the season can turn one way or the other. But I sit here and I believe that's the truth.
Yeah, and Jimmy, I know you've got questions for Dudley Dawson, hogville.net. Let's go.
Well, I think this is a really interesting matchup because BYU, like Arkansas, started out strong, and then they have, slipped a bit in recent weeks. They lost a tough game in Las Vegas against Notre Dame in the Shamrock Series, and so they're like the Hogs. I mean, they're desperate for a win, but I think that it's just critical to have a Jefferson in the lineup because subconsciously, I think from the coaching staff all the way down to the entire roster, you just have kind of a different feeling, I'm sure, when he's going to play. And this team goes how KJ Jefferson goes, I feel. And how do you sense the feeling around the Razorback camp, knowing he's going to play, that they're really going to give it an effort that can put them maybe at their A game on Saturday?
Well, I'll kind of put it this way. I've taken a little criticism this week. That's fine. That Malik Hornsby had a great debut, if we want to call it, even though he's been out there some. But his limelight, being in the limelight for really the first time as a guy who got a lot of playing time at quarterback. He did well, but before then, his level of maturity, his attention to details, his responsibility, with his teammates, that had been lacking. And that's just the simple truth. I think if you set him down, he'd tell you that same thing. Now, obviously, you hope he's turned a corner and all those things are going the right way. And certainly, he made a definite appearance and did some things. But this football team is led by KJ Jefferson. He's always been the leader. He's been elected captain even when he wasn't an upperclassman. He is both their emotional, their physical, and mental leader. And it's just like anything else. You could go into a war with a different general, but you want to go in one that's won you some games that you feel that will lead you the right way. And again, I'm not trying to belittle anything that Malik Hornsby has done, and I wish him well. Things would come on, but KJ is the guy, and they go as he goes a lot of times.
Well, and I agree with you. Can you ever remember, Dudley, a weekend like we had this past weekend, and where you had so many backup quarterbacks having to start? And, look at Kentucky, Arkansas, Alabama. That was a tough weekend. And Alabama got the win. You could tell it was a gut-wrenching win. Bryce Young, again, do you know what the AC joint is in the shoulder? I was talking, Jimmy and I yesterday, and again, none of us are medical doctors, okay, just for the record. But Dudley, I'm not familiar with that.
Know a little bit about it. The closest I've come is having a rotator cuff injury, which they wanted me to get repaired at one time, but because I was, in my early 50s, I thought, I'm not really going to be throwing the baseball for the Cardinals anymore. And you would have to sleep in a chair for a long time. Into that. But I know that it certainly is one of these popular injuries these days. I'm sure it was called something else back in the day, shoulder stinger, something like that. And now, they have a term for it and all that. And it's out there in the vernacular. But I'm not too familiar with it. But boy, it sure keeps quarterbacks from playing, and catchers in baseball and different players in basketball. So it obviously is a legitimate injury. It's just one of these things that's becoming in vogue here lately. And obviously, the Bryce Young playing for Alabama is a big deal. I rarely pick against Alabama, but I'm doing so this weekend. Number one, because Tennessee has been playing so well. I think they, got a great role there going. Plus, as good as Milroe was late against Arkansas, he struggled last week against Texas A&M. So, I may regret it, but I'm going with Tennessee this weekend.
Well, hey, Audrey, my wife here to my right and producer, is like going, Dudley, I told you how smart he is. And she says, and he's from Newport and Balch. But by the way, we're in Newport again this past weekend, checking on one of our duck holes. And we need to get a rain dance going, man. I mean, we need rain.
Oh, yeah.
You know what's funny? It's like this with farmers and everybody. It's too much rain, not enough rain, never just right. And I'm driving back and forth over the St. Francis multiple times a day in the Mississippi. I think the Mississippi's maybe 10 feet deep out in the middle. Let's do this. Let's take a quick break. We're going to be right back with Dudley Dawson on the ECS House Industries Hogville.net Razorback Report. Jimmy Hodge in Knoxville. And, of course, we're broadcasting live from Wynne, Arkansas, in the middle of Harvest Festival right now. We'll be back after this quick commercial break.
Red River Ford and Toyota, located in Wynne, Arkansas. If you're in the market for a new or used car, truck, or SUV, call, go online, or drop by and see them. Located 45 minutes from Memphis, go off the 4-city exit on I-40 and go north about 15 minutes on Highway 1. Easy to work with and still believe in customer service. If you live out of town, they will deliver your vehicle to you. RedRiverFordToyota.com. Just see what they can do.
Strengthen your seed zone this spring with quality tillage equipment from House Industries. Located in Cherry Valley, Arkansas, House Industries specializes in manufacturing superior equipment that will minimize your downtime and keep you working in the field. To ensure the highest quality control, all design, fabrication, and testing takes place in a 99,000 square foot manufacturing facility located right here in the heart of the Delta. Locate your nearest House equipment dealer online at houseindustriesinc.com.
House Industries, breaking ground.
Sidelines with Rob Browne. Talk sporty to me.
All right, Rob Browne back here with you. And I don't know, maybe somebody's mic or something moving around, like something's wrestling around in the background. I don't know what that is. Somebody's got a snake in a bag or something. But anyway, Dudley, let's talk about BYU. Most people around here, the first time I saw BYU, 1979, Lavelle Edwards was the coach. He coached there for about 70 years. They went 11-0. They had guys like Robbie Bosco, Jim McMahon, a lot of great quarterbacks. And who will ever forget that incredible Friday night Holiday Bowl? Was that SMU and BYU? That's one of the great comebacks of all time. But what do you know about this BYU team other than their average age is older than every other college football team in America? And that I can't imagine what it's like now with the virus years that people are getting. I'm wondering if some of these guys are ever going to leave.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good gig for them. I think, and obviously they've had really good football teams over the course of the last several decades. They, won 11 in 10 games the last 2 years, and have played some pretty good opponents. They've won 20 of their last 21 games at home. So obviously they take care of their business there. Utah got them, one time at home, and Washington got them. So, really good, home field advantage, I guess you would say. It's a 2:30 game. I know that Arkansas's coaches are happy they're not playing at 6. It is a beautiful backdrop. That's certainly one thing. But just as for their football team, as you said, an older football team, Jaron Hall has been really good for the most part of the season, their quarterback. He was only 9 of 17 against Notre Dame last week. An interesting thing that I think that Notre Dame did that Arkansas certainly would love to do too. Notre Dame had 40 minutes of possession time. They just did not allow BYU to be on the field, not allow them to to have extended drives, and certainly that cut everything down. They were 11 of 16 on third downs, and that's something that Arkansas, both offensively and defensively, has to get better at. You got to get the other team off the field on third down. You got to get them in positions where it's third down and long instead of third down and one. And as an offense, you've got to convert those, and that hasn't been, the case. Again, I remarked about the 3rd and 1s and the 4th and 1s, but there's the 3rd and 7 and the 3rd and 12s that they hadn't been as successful on as they would like to as well. They have had a lot of big plays, and some of them last week because the Mississippi State was sending so many people up because they didn't want to let Hornsby run, and that left receivers one-on-one coverage, and they're able to do that. And it wasn't the most beautiful throws, but when a guy's open, you get him the ball. That's what you're supposed to do.
When you look at the matchups, again, we say this so much on the show, but it's on paper is one thing. It's how you match up on game days another. Where does Arkansas have obvious advantages, and do you see obvious disadvantages they're going to have to overcome?
Well, the one thing I would say is I don't see any obvious advantages other than if this was a fully healthy football team, that I think Arkansas would be viewed as a more physical team. And that's what they're going to try to go in and do. They're going to try to make it an old-timey SEC football game with with a head coach who's an offensive line mentality. He once told me that he was getting tired when he was the assistant here. I'm getting tired of this going east and west stuff. I want to go north and south. That's something they have to do. Obviously, they've got to vary things up. You can't just be one-dimensional. But that's the big thing. They've got to line up and run the ball against BYU, be able to pass it when they want to, not only when they need to. And I think that's the big thing. As for disadvantages, obviously, I have trouble when I'm at altitude, getting my breath and all kind of things. That's something that they've done some research on. They're going to try to do their best in terms of keeping the kids as mentally focused and not worrying about being tired and out of breath and all that. But I think another thing, if you focus on that too much, kids are going to focus on it as well. You just need to talk about going to play football. Yeah. Let the medical personnel, if there needs to be decisions made, make it. But you need to realize, and again, BYU, a great university, so one that's had a great football program over the years, but you got to realize you're an SEC football team. You don't take a back seat to anyone. I don't care if you're in the lower half of the conference. You are supposed to go out there. You're supposed to be physical. You're supposed to run football. That's how it's supposed to work. We'll see if it does.
Yeah, and I remember we were talking back in the beginning of the 2019 season. Missouri had to go out to Laramie, play Wyoming, 7,300 feet above sea level. That's where they have the High Altitude Performance Center, and they got beat. And Francis, one of our guests, we have a lot on the show, is a Notre Dame alum, talked about that at length. He just said, don't discount how big a deal that is. But I'm sure the Arkansas coaches and the trainers, they're smart. They have been preparing for this. And Jimmy, you've been out there to BYU, I'm sure. You've been to a lot of those schools in the Pacific Northwest. What is the biggest thing, a guy that's never been out there before, what's the biggest thing he's going to notice? Just it's a little bit more difficult to breathe right at first, but you can acclimate? Or is it a problem that could be a real problem?
Well, BYU is a school I haven't been to. I've flown over it a couple of times, but
that counts.
But haven't been to a game there. Yeah, but we all know though that at all the mountain schools, be it Colorado and Utah, of course, who by the way also has a large number of Mormons on their roster, which it also gives them an advantage. But yeah, everybody knows that it's just different as far as just getting your breathing. And I guess you almost have to be taught during games to maybe take deep breaths on the sideline when you're not playing just subconsciously. But you see guys on the bench all the time with getting oxygen, just to make sure that, that helps them get acclimated, obviously, but it's an advantage. I'm guessing, though, if you live there every day, I mean, it's, you're just accustomed to it. But what I wanted to ask Dudley here was, as the season has progressed, and well, we know Arkansas has the toughest schedule in the country, so there hasn't been much of a drop off every week in regard to their opponents. But how do you sense that this program is improving its depth with some of these younger players that have had to come in and play against, again, elite competition? And overall, how do you think the program is developing in that aspect?
Well, in the secondary, I think that, because of where they're rated, sometimes numbers lie, sometimes numbers don't. But I think that the people that they've had back there that they've had to play because of injuries have not, don't have that much experience playing back there. And they've moved two of the wide receivers to defensive back in the past couple of weeks, both who have just been playing on special teams. So I think that's been, that hadn't come along. I do think that the running backs, I do think that the defensive line, even though there's a lot of criticism of whether they put 3 up there or 4 in rush, I do think that they're in the process of continuing to develop, but certainly they're not there. I would say, it's become my mantra on here. They just don't have the depth. I think the recruiting class coming in, it's ranked 17th or so by most people. It's got 3 great tight ends, a lot of very good defenders. You can't depend on freshman defenders, obviously, to come in and give you too much. But I think they're just going to have to continue to recruit themselves out of the depth issue. But no way do I think that they're anywhere where they need to be. But you just take one position, those 3 tight ends. Very rarely has Arkansas had 2 tight ends on the field this year. They've only got 2 guys that's really played. The tight end has always been a big thing here at Arkansas, and to get those 3 guys in the system next year will help the defense, because Arkansas will be able to keep the ball more with those 3 guys. It will give them more options than just Trey Knox at tight end. The big thing these days, man, Jimmy, is that you got one segment where you recruit high school kids and maybe a few junior college, and then you got a whole other segment where you recruit portal guys. For the most part, I think Arkansas's portal guys that they brought in this year have been adequate, but I don't know that there's been any superstars, and that's what you've got to have in the transfer portal when you're trying to fill holes.
I'm going to ask you another.
I'm sorry, Dudley. I know we talked about earlier this season that with this schedule, there was a very real possibility that Arkansas could be a better team from top to bottom, but yet the record would not show that. And I know you can't change it. Arkansas is in the SEC West. They're going to continue to be in the SEC West. But I think we could argue safely that if Arkansas had played Ohio State's schedule up to this point, they could very easily be undefeated.
Yeah, and I think there's a few schedules in the SEC they would have rather played too, and it might have been, be better served. But it is what it is. And Coach Pittman knew, made it when he got the job, made a statement about that. It is what it is. You can't sit around and gripe about it, or it becomes an issue that is gone on and talked about by your players. You've got to just show up every week, play. This would be a huge victory if they could go out there and get it. I'm not expecting them to, but if you have this win, 4-3, you have an off week next week, and then you're going to Auburn, and I think we could say that both of those teams have, to this point, have maybe underachieved, at least in their fans' eyes. Then you got a chance to kind of turn the season around really quick. If you don't, then you got off week to at least get healthy, and you definitely would have to go down there, and Auburn would be a must-win, and nobody wants to have to, even if Auburn's not playing well, nobody wants to have to go to the Plains needing a must-win, especially when, I guess it's pretty much a must-win down there at Auburn all the time now, isn't it?
Well, yeah, it is. And I know what you're feeling. I remember 2008, Bobby Petrino's first year there. Remember they went on the road. We were up at Hardy on the Spring River with all the kids. It was a wild weekend. And I remember Channel 7 in Little Rock, they were broadcasting. It was a big win for Petrino to go on the road to his former employer, where there's been an attempt made to bring him back and during the cover of night. But listen, Dudley, one more thing before we go, because I love having you on here, and all of us do. You know football. You're a truth broker. Tell me real quick, in the last minute or so, recruiting in state. Arkansas last year signed 8 of the top 10. That's the first time they'd ever done that. Are they on that same trajectory this year? The top 10, top 15? It looks to me like nobody is leaving Arkansas if the Razorbacks want them.
Well, they've got a good in-state class. I mean, that have been able to acquire in this 2023. There's not as many people as I think they would like to. Certainly not as many bona fide Division I prospects as there was last year. In 2024, they only had one commitment. Braylon Russell, a young man, running back, has decommitted. Is Ole Miss and Tennessee, I think, are involved now. So that 2024 class is going to be another one that they're really going to have to get a lot of strength out of. You have to get every kid you can that can play Division I football at a high level out of Arkansas. There aren't many, so you got to get a lot of them. And then, Coach Pittman and his staff will just have to go around and to its different footprints and get the best players they can. Yeah, that's the only way you get out of this.
Yeah, well, and I look at that on the offensive line. A lot of schools are struggling at that position, and I think it's because so much emphasis is put on these summer camps on the 7-on-7. It's the skill players. It's all about the skill players. Look, you can't have skill players catching passes. Running backs can't run the ball for any yardage without getting hit in the backfield if you don't have the big guys up front. And, it's right, too. It's hard to find in the population those big guys like that, offensive linemen. But Sam Pittman and the way he coaches and the personality of him and his staff, they attract offensive linemen. And if you've got them, man, you've got what it takes. And I think a couple of more recruiting classes, Arkansas will get out of where they are now. You're right. That top 44, pretty darn good. It's that next 45 through 85, and they're getting it. Hey, tell people, Dudley, how they can follow you. I always love having you on Sidelines with us. The Razorbacks, but college football, and you're a damn good man.
Well, I appreciate that very much. Twitter handle is Dead Sports, DED Sports. Obviously been very fortunate to be working for hogville.net, the best and largest website in Arkansas, and also Fearless Friday, the high school site that we have. Looking really forward to watching Greenwood and Lake Hamilton this weekend as I continue to tour the state watching high school football, which I love. And go Greyhounds.
Yeah, hey, it's right. Now, listen, how many schools? There are 200 football playing high schools in Arkansas, and you've been to a bunch this year. You got a number?
I would say that 50 somewhere around in there is what I've been to so far. I kind of remembered back in the day when I was going to do this, that there wasn't as many football programs in Arkansas. There's a lot of them now, and but I'm doing it. I'm getting around to them, and if I haven't gotten to your town, I've talked to your coach.
Yeah, there you go, Dudley. Thanks so much. Have a great week. Good luck Saturday. Let's get the SEC a win up in the mountains.
All right, go Cowboys too.
All righty, absolutely. Jimmy likes that one. Cowboys got a few fans over here in Arkansas. Let's head down to Tuscaloosa. Gary Harris, WVUA, Channel 23, Tide 100.9, does a great show every day, 9 to 11 there in Tuscaloosa. Gary, there's a game this weekend up on the hill in Knoxville. My wife is a Vol for life. We're going up there, heading out this afternoon. We're on the last train to Clarksville, then we're heading up to Knoxville tomorrow. SEC Nation, game day, Marty and McGee, CBS. God only knows, everybody in the free world is going to be there. Gary, you know what's crazy? In 1962, the Cuban Missile Crisis, you're familiar with that? My parents were coming back from an AIA convention, American Institute of Architects convention in Washington. And that was during the Cuban Missile Crisis. And they told everybody to get off the road. And so my parents were going through Knoxville. Alabama was playing there, I believe. They had a big game. There were no hotels anywhere. They ended up going to Morristown or something like that. And literally people thought we were going to nuclear war. 9 months later, I was born. So I've been fired up ever since. So let's talk some college football about Tennessee and Alabama, because this is a fun game. But what we're going to do first, we're going to take a quick commercial break and come back, because I don't want to get you started, because, man, we love having you on here. I want to say hello again to one of our sponsors, Dr. Waller May, the May Veterinary Clinic, Tuscaloosa and Northport since 1964. They genuinely care about your dogs, cats, animals, and all your critters. So go there, check the website out, mayveterinaryclinic.com. They're great people to work with. So we're going to come back after this break, talk with Gary Harris about the Alabama-Tennessee game in a moment.
Red River Ford and Toyota, located in Wynne, Arkansas. If you're in the market for a new or used car, truck, or SUV, call, go online, or drop by and see them. Located 45 minutes from Memphis, go off the 4-city exit on I-40 and go north about 15 minutes on Highway 1. Easy to work with and still believe in customer service. If you live out of town, they will deliver your vehicle to you. RedRiverFordToyota.com. Just see what they can do.
Strengthen your seed zone this spring with quality tillage equipment from HAWGS Industries. Located in Cherry Valley, Arkansas, HAWGS Industries specializes in manufacturing superior equipment that will minimize your downtime and keep you working in the field. To ensure the highest quality control, all design, fabrication, and testing takes place in a 99,000 square foot manufacturing facility located right here in the heart of the Delta. Locate your nearest HAWGS equipment dealer online at HAWGSIndustriesInc.com.
HAWGS Industries, breaking ground.
Sidelines with Rob Browne. Talk sporty to me.
Rob Browne back here, sidelines on this Thursday, going into Week 7, Tennessee and Alabama. Man, what a rivalry! But Alabama's won 15 in a row. And Gary, you can just hear the voice, the ghost of John Forney. Well, Coach Bryant extending this streak to 10 in a row against Tennessee, and this Bromberg's play of the day, play of the game will be remembered forever. Tennessee again wins it. It's a series of streaks, man. Prior to Nick Saban coming to Alabama in 2007, I think Tennessee was 10 wins, 4 losses, and a tie. That being the 1993 Tennessee-Alabama game in Birmingham in the rain. That was a David Palmer. They tied it up. I just think Nick Saban, when he was in the cradle, thought about, I'm going to be a coach one day. And I love coaching when everybody thinks that we're weak and going to get beat. And they look at what happens when we win. We win a close game. I think he salivates and just prays for games like this, walking into the Lions' Den.
Well, that seems to be the case, Rob. And you're right. What a streaky series. Coach Bryant won 11 in a row. And then Tennessee won 4 in a row. Then Alabama won 7 in a row. Then Tennessee went on a streak. And now Alabama's won 15 in a row. And, Saban's 15-0 against Tennessee at Alabama, and had success against them when he was at LSU, too. I remember, of course, the big SEC championship game upset with Nick Saban at LSU against Tennessee, an unbeaten Tennessee team under Philip Fulmer. So, you do feel like Alabama's going into the Lions' Den. Rivalries are great, but once they get this one-sided, they do lose a little bit of the luster. There's no doubt about it. I mean, when you beat the team 15 times in a row, you don't normally associate that with these types of games. If you're going to have a 15-type game winning streak against someone, it's going to be, a team that's not traditionally a rival for you, or a team that, isn't quite a college football blue blood. But Tennessee is a big time program, and has been for a long, long time, and has a lot of pride, and their fan base, is biting at the bit, and they're ready to blow the roof off Neyland Stadium on Saturday afternoon, because I think their fans, their players and coaches believe they've got a team that can beat Alabama. And certainly based on what we've seen from them so far, they are a really good team. They're 5-0, and, beating Florida, which has been a nemesis for Tennessee, won at LSU in a blowout fashion last Saturday, won at Pitt in overtime, and Alabama's 6-0, but has had a couple really close games this season, and games that came down to the final play. And even though they won those games, I do think the feeling is that, that Alabama is vulnerable against a really good team. And, Bryce Young didn't play last week after the shoulder sprain against Arkansas. And I believe he will play on Saturday afternoon at Neyland against Tennessee. But, when you haven't played for a couple of weeks and you're a quarterback and you're dealing with some shoulder pain, you do wonder, what his level of effectiveness will be, although I think he'll be fine. But, it's a big game. And it's and you're going to Knoxville, too, which even plays into it more for Tennessee fans. If this game were in Tuscaloosa, I don't think they'd have quite the level of confidence that they seem to be putting out there right now. But from what I've read and seen and listened to, their fans not only expect Tennessee to be competitive, they're expecting them to win. So, as you said, Rob, this is one of those rare opportunities for Alabama, not even though they're a favorite in Vegas, 7.5 points, not like the situation was last year when they went in the SEC championship game and they were an underdog. They still, it still feels a little bit like Alabama's an underdog in this situation. And I do think that they relish these opportunities because they're the hunter much more than they're the hunted. And, or they're hunted much more than they're the hunter. And this time maybe they get a chance to go in there with the, a little bit of a mental edge in that a lot of people are picking Tennessee to win the game.
Well, the one thing, and I always say this, I'll use this phrase, I came up with this on my own, you're most likely to get mugged in your own driveway. That's what Tennessee's got to be careful of is, we're at home, 100,000 plus, Neyland Stadium, the Vol Navy. Everybody will be there. We'll be doing the Vol Walk, probably be 250,000 people in and around that stadium. I mean, it will be the place to be. The college football world is focused all on Knoxville this weekend, but Alabama, the visiting team, you got to think they have the advantage. They're coming in on edge. They're not sleeping in their beds. They're out of their comfort zone, but they train and they relish these moments. Tennessee, I mean, looking at it just objectively, my wife's a Tennessee fan, but Mallory is an Alabama grad, and all my other kids are Auburn. So, this is typical of what we deal with in the South. Mm-hmm. So it makes it so much fun. But I think Tennessee, for them to win, they can't say, well, they better not be thinking, I hope Bryce Young doesn't play. You better be prepared for him to play because Dr. Waller May, the May Veterinary Clinic, and I were talking last night. He was at the Alabama game the other night. He said Bryce Young, you could tell he was chomping at the bits to get out there. That guy is a warrior. He's a competitor. But the best thing I saw out of him, just my observation, I'm going to throw it to Jimmy after this, the way he embraced Jalen Milroe and had his back. That is the kind of quarterback you want on your team. Coaches, pray for guys like Bryce Young to be on their roster. Jimmy?
Yeah, this is, I think, the type of game that Saban lives for, especially after that performance against A&M, a 4-touchdown underdog coming into town without their best offensive player, Anaya Smith, their second-team quarterback, Haynes King, who's not a very good passer. And then they were missing their left guard and their left tackle, and yet they came in there and played like a top-5 team as far as just playing at the line of scrimmage goes and playing physical football. And it reminds me a little bit of when I left Jordan-Hare after the Iron Bowl last year. There wasn't a person leaving that stadium that thought Alabama, after that performance, would have a shot against Georgia. And then Bill O'Brien puts together just a genius game plan that kept that Georgia defense, who many thought was one of the most dominant in memory, off balance from the very beginning. And I think you're going to see Saban involved also in the defensive game plan. And I think they have looked a lot at that Pitt tape, because if you guys will remember, Pitt held Tennessee scoreless in the second half of that game before losing in overtime. And then finally, Gary, I wanted to ask you about Saban's statement yesterday, in which Bryce Young was on a 25 pitch count. Now, what on earth does that mean? And I'm wondering, when you come out to pregame warmups? Is he not going to be throwing in warmups, or how did you interpret that? But I guarantee you, he's kind of behind the scenes enjoying those mind games and trying to keep the Tennessee coaching staff guessing all the way up until game time.
Yeah, I think that obviously, he's not going to let on what Alabama's quarterback situation is, and Tennessee's having to prepare for both quarterbacks. The pitch count comment was interesting following practice on Wednesday. I kind of took it like you did, Jimmy. I'm not sure what he's talking about. Does that mean he's only going to be able to throw 25 times, or he gets to 25 throws, or they're not going to throw the football anymore? But I know they're managing him in practice, and my expectation is that if he plays in the game and he starts in the game, that they're going to run the Alabama offense with Bryce Young and do what they need to do. And from what I've been told here, it's not a situation where it's going to get the injury's going to be worsened by him playing or throwing the ball. Obviously, if he were to take a hit, like in any situation in a game, he could be hurt. But I think we'll see, Alabama with Bryce Young doing what they do. And as far as the other aspect of what you talked about coming out of the Iron Bowl last year, you're right. I mean, there weren't a lot of people that felt like Alabama would even be competitive against Georgia in Atlanta, and they went over there and laid one on them. So, yeah, I like to say that Nick Saban's been breaking hearts since 2007, when he got to Alabama. We've seen this scenario play over many times when Alabama's gone on the road into a hostile environment against a jacked up crowd, whether it's been Gainesville or Athens or Knoxville or Baton Rouge or, insert stadium with a home crowd that was frantic and feeling like it was their time, and Alabama's gone in there and ripped their hearts out. And they get that opportunity again on Saturday afternoon. Now, looking at the game, it is not going to be easy. I do think Tennessee's really good. I am impressed with the job that Josh Heupel's done. They snap the ball, I think as fast as anybody in the country. They run a lot of plays. They do what they do, and they do it well. And, they can get in a rhythm on offense, and they can stress your defense time after time. I think for Alabama, if Bryce is playing in the game, I think they can score a lot of points too. We've seen that, but I do think this Alabama defense is playing really well. I mean, I look at the Arkansas game, and I look at the A&M game, and I look at the points that were scored in that game. Both of them were over 20 points, but most of the time in those games, their offenses, the opposing offenses, benefited from Alabama mistakes. 2 turnovers, 2 fumbles by Jalen Milroe on Alabama's side of the field led to A&M's 2 touchdowns. Of course, you had the onside kick, and then you had the bad snap that gave them a 1st and goal at the 2. But over the course of 60 minutes, this Alabama defense has played well, and they've gotten after the quarterback. They've defensed the run. I don't think Tennessee, and I'm confident in saying this, has faced a defense like they're going to face on Saturday afternoon either. I don't put Florida's defense in the same category as Alabama's, nor Pitt's. So I think it'll be a challenge for Tennessee too. That's why these games are fun, and that's why you go play. But I certainly am not counting Alabama out. And in fact, I think Alabama will win the game.
Yeah, Gary, you and Jimmy both are on fire on these points, and I think about this too. Rodney Orr said it yesterday. Jahmyr Gibbs, he thought he would be this year's version of what Jamison Williams did last year coming in from Ohio State. What a difference that he made. Jahmyr Gibbs, I think, is going to leave Alabama as one of Alabama's top 5 all-time running backs. He is I did not realize he was that good of a player when he was at Georgia Tech. And again, I haven't been watching Georgia Tech a lot lately, although they're playing better lately. But man, this guy's out of Dalton, Georgia. And I don't remember in high school, the kid must be smart because he passed calculus. I'll say that, or he can take a lot of pain and suffering. What else about Alabama without Jahmyr Gibbs? How good is Alabama's offensive line? They're leading the nation, aren't they? 1 or 2 in rushing.
Yeah, I think the offensive line's played really well. And I think they're getting better every week, Rob.
Yeah.
And I think you make a great point. You have a tremendous back, but even a great back, has to have seams, has to have an opening to get started. And he's great at seeing the hole and hitting it. But I think this offensive line has improved from game to game. Eric Wolford in his first season, I really think we're starting to see his impact as an offensive line coach. Man, they've gotten physical, they've gotten back to that, they'll line up and hit you in the mouth. And I think pass protection, they've been solid. I mean, I know Milroe got hit a few times, but some of those were on him. I mean, you can't stand back there all day. Sometimes you got to get rid of the ball, or you got to pull it down and you got to run it. But I'm impressed with the offensive line, and yeah, Jahmyr Gibbs is the real deal. I think he reminds some of former Alabama and Tennessee running back Alvin Kamara, with that stop-start ability, ability to make people miss, but at the same, be explosive, but at the same time run with power. He'll put his head down too. He's a tremendous back, and yeah, he's a wild card for this Alabama offense, and that they can do so many different things with him. They can put him in the backfield, they can hand him the ball, they can put him in the slot, they can put him in motion, they can use him in the passing game like a wide receiver. And running backs can be a matchup nightmare for defenses if they're good in the passing game, and he certainly is. So yeah, I think he's been a huge addition to this offense. They've got other really good backs, but Jahmyr Gibbs is special. And no matter how many good players you have on your team, everybody isn't Jahmyr Gibbs. Everybody isn't Jamison Williams. Everybody isn't Henry Ruggs. You have good players, and then you have players that, because of their physical skill set, are just nightmares for defenses. And I think Jahmyr Gibbs is one of those players.
Yeah, and he must have some track and field background, because he gets those legs, and he's got great form when he runs, but that ability to cut, stop, and start, he thinks quickly. A lot of the guys can't do that. He sees things. His vision is outstanding. Jimmy, got a few more minutes with Gary Harris. All right. Anyway, Gary, I was trying to get Jimmy on.
I just wanted to.
I've got remote today, so about one more question to be good for me. Go ahead, Jimmy. I'm sorry.
Okay. Yeah. No, I was just thinking about getting Gibbs involved maybe a little bit in the passing game, because you've heard about, since the time he got there, what a great receiver he is. And with the type of game he had against A&M, you want to see him get the ball more often. And especially if you can get the ball to him out in space, I think that can make him especially dangerous. And I also, with Milroe getting pressured as much as he did, I was really surprised they didn't use their screen game a little bit. And do you think there's a chance you might see some of those things against Tennessee?
Yeah, I do. And in fact, I'm with you guys on that. I love Milroe. I love Gibbs in the passing game, but the pure screen game, we haven't seen that much from him. And if Tennessee brings pressure, it's a great way to suck those defensive linemen in and then just kind of slip him out and just toss him the ball and let him go. So yeah, I think him in the passing game is going to be a big part of this Alabama offense, because again, if you can get him matched up on a linebacker, it's almost illegal. I mean, I don't think there's a linebacker that can cover the guy. And as you said, Jimmy, in the screen game, I mean, that's an area where, they run the hitches, they run the quick little rhythm throws, but they haven't run many pure screens where they invite the defensive line in, and then once they're sucked in on the quarterback, and they just kind of loop the ball out to him and get him in space and let him go. So yeah, he's dynamic. He's a great player. He's going to need to have a big game on Saturday, and I believe he's got the ability to do that.
Gary,
hey guys, I've enjoyed it, man. I got a remote here in Tuscaloosa that I got to get ready for, but thank you guys so much.
Hey, you bet, man. And we'll give it Gary Harris, Tide 100.9. Follow him on Twitter. We'll do it again next week. Thanks. Okay, Jimmy. Again, we're gonna go to a break here in a little over a minute. So I want to say, Jahmyr Gibbs, Alabama is using the portal so effectively. Compare that also to what Ole Miss is doing with the portal. They've done a great job bringing in guys like Jackson Dart and Zach Evans. Michael Trigg, the tight end, you hate that. That's another Southern Cal kid who's from, I think, Tampa, who is injured and I think is gone for the rest of the year. But the portal, again, guys have always been able to transfer. I guess the biggest thing with the portal is it makes it so much easier, and you can look up there like the crawl and see who's available in the portal. It's almost like going shopping. So we're going to do this. We're going to take a break. And when we come back, we're going to head out to Wimberley, Texas, talk with Coach Jackie Sherrill. Had an issue last week with the phones, but we got him back on today. Love to get inside of his mind. Coach Jackie Sherrill, Unfiltered. I mean, he's one of the smartest coaches around for football and also business. You're not going to want to miss this coming up right after this quick break on Kicks 96.3, Lake Martin, Alex City.
Red River Ford and Toyota, located in Wynne, Arkansas. If you're in the market for a new or used car, truck, or SUV, call, go online, or drop by and see them. Located 45 minutes from Memphis, go off the 4-city exit on I-40 and go north about 15 minutes on Highway 1. Easy to work with and still believe in customer service. If you live out of town, they will deliver your vehicle to you. RedRiverFordToyota.com. Just see what they can do.
Strengthen your seed zone this spring with quality tillage equipment from House Industries. Located in Cherry Valley, Arkansas, House Industries specializes in manufacturing superior equipment that will minimize your downtime and keep you working in the field. To ensure the highest quality control, all design, fabrication, and testing takes place in a 99,000 square foot manufacturing facility located right here in the heart of the Delta. Locate your nearest House equipment dealer online at houseindustriesinc.com.
House Industries, breaking ground.
Sidelines with Rob Browne. Talk sporty to me.
All right, Rob Browne, Jimmy Hodge here. That was a great segment with Gary Harris. Check him out, Tide 100.9, WVUA TV 23 in Tuscaloosa, Tuesday nights at 6:30. So it's a statewide all over Alabama. He and Rodney Orr really do a great job of breaking down what's going on with Alabama football and Alabama every week. Again, Tuesday nights, WVUA TV 23. Subscribe to it. And also, of course, Gary has a great show. He really knows his football. Jimmy, before Coach Sherrill comes on, I'm looking at this Tennessee Alabama game. And again, I really feel that way. This is what Nick Saban loves. And for Tennessee, they're getting used to playing without Cedric Tillman. They got other guys on that roster, and they're stepping up. But again, you can go through your schedule, and Tennessee's 5-0, and in the back of your mind, you're going, "Is that good enough to beat Alabama?" That's what you do. Is that good enough to beat Georgia? Well, guess what? Tennessee has an opportunity to prove that they're better than Alabama and better than Georgia when they go down between the hedges. So, mentally, Josh Heupel has got to just keep these guys not looking ahead. They've got 7 games starting Saturday left just in the regular season.
Well, offensively, Tennessee's good enough to beat anybody because they can put points on the board, and they have a lot of confidence with that offense. They have experienced players. They really have the entire package. But, coming into this game, I think it's the first time in a long time that Tennessee's playing a game this late in the season with national implications, playoff implications. And it's going to be interesting to see how they respond to that environment. But I still think it just comes down to a Bryce Young not only being able to play, but to play at 100%, because he's the one guy that can exploit Tennessee's biggest weakness. And we all know that's in the secondary, specifically at the cornerbacks. Those guys have been, vulnerable all year long. So if Bryce can go, I think Alabama's chances of winning are very good. If he can't go or he's limited, and Milroe's going to have to go a big portion of the game, I think it's going to be a really tough haul for Alabama. So we'll just have to wait and see. But the intrigue right now is, it's you can just feel it, and I can't imagine what it's going to be like when you get to the stadium and the electricity that you're going to feel there.
And we talked about this yesterday too. When during the week that you're going to be the starter on that, given Saturday, that's one thing. It's different. But if you're on the sidelines, you're the backup, and in the fourth quarter, the starter goes down with an ACL injury, and they throw you out there. That's why the coaches say you better be ready because you're one play away from being our starter. I think having a week under his belt, Jalen Milroe is going to be more comfortable, more confident. I'm guessing I'll be shocked if Bryce Young plays Saturday. And again, I don't know anything, but even if he plays, how effective will he be? But his presence on that sideline for Alabama in the locker room, working with Jalen Milroe if he's the starter and if he has to go the full 60 by himself with his teammates, but I mean, just as the starter, Bryce Young is a coach on the field. He's not real vocal, but he's a winner. He finds excuses to win. Winning on the road like Alabama did at Texas, winning at home like they did against Texas A&M has made this team a lot closer. That's just what I see. And we know the atmosphere in Neyland Stadium will be raucous, but in the back of the minds of the Tennessee fans, are they waiting for the other shoe to drop? If Alabama jumps out 14-17-0, are they going to just say, oh, here we go again? You know, I knew better than to get excited. There are a lot of head games going on. Didn't Foreigner write a song about that? Head games or half games, whatever. But that is what's going on. It's the mental chess game that's being played. And I'm anxious to hear, because Coach Sherrill, I mean, he's pretty calm now. You know, he'll get after an official. That's fun. And by the way, tried to get Steve Shaw, coordinator of NCAA officials, on Friday's show. He'll be traveling. This is kind of the busy season. It's like trying to get hold of Santa Claus right before Christmas. I mean, this is his time of the year as coordinator of officials. But I don't have any stats here in my hands. But you look at there's just not as many targeting calls this year. It's not being called, but you're also not seeing that many hits that would warrant a targeting call. Again, I'm not an official, but I think the guys are learning, hey, you can still, knock somebody's, silly, but there's a right way to do it and a wrong way to do it. And again, I go back to coachsafely.org, Jack Crow, Kevin Skarbinski. They're doing a lot of stuff in terms of coaches, 80,000. That's the number of coaches that they want to train so they are ready to go. But one thing we do know is that Coach Jackie Sherrill, native of Duncan, Oklahoma, Alabama graduate, played there in the 60s. In my opinion, just a matter of time, Hall of Fame coach with almost 180 victories, great track record, unfiltered. You talk about a truth broker. And Coach Sherrill, thank you for taking time out of your Thursday morning to join us. And I got to ask you one question. Do you long for those days when you were in Starkville, when Jack Crystal would say, well, let's take one moment for this message from one of our proud sponsors, Ayoup's on the Square in Canton, Mississippi. We'll be right back.
Yeah, Jack was one of a kind. There's no question.
Yeah, it was great. But Coach, again, thank you so much. And a lot going on in the college football world. It's the midway point. You see football, you go to a lot of games all over the country. What are your takeaways from what you've seen so far, Big 12, SEC, coast to coast, because nobody can put it in the vernacular as well as you?
Well, on the West Coast, you know, the two teams that have been the bell cows for years, Southern Cal and UCLA, have turned things around. And there's no question that the winner of that game will have a chance to move on. But in the SEC, it's coming down to Georgia, Alabama, and Tennessee. This week, Tennessee versus Alabama. If somebody held a gun to my head, I'd have to say Tennessee. I've watched their quarterback really continue to get better. I watched him last year when they played Pitt, and if they had started him, they would have beaten Pitt. But Tennessee, and they're catching Alabama at the right time, because you can say Young, is he well? Is he not well? How do you protect him? What are you doing? I mean, there's an awful lot of ifs and questions, and when you go into a game with those, without your quarterback being 100%, i.e. Young, then there are a lot of questions, and you're spending time in practice, really preparing for him not to be there or for something to happen. So there's a lot of caution in there. Tennessee supposedly is healthy, so it's full speed ahead. There's a lot more excitement, I will say, on the campus at Tennessee than there is on the campus of Alabama, and that makes a big difference when you talking about playing, because in pro ball there are some places, but generally it's the players on the field. In college football, because of the place that you're playing, helps your players win a lot. That's like at College Station with the 12th man, or in Baton Rouge with, especially if it's a night game and they have a lot of water to drink during the day, the game is a lot excitable for the home crowd. Now, going to the north into the Big 12, the biggest surprise is Kansas. And, no one thought that Kansas would be setting their 5-1. So, we can just kind of go around. It looks like it's going to be Michigan, Ohio State, possible Penn State. But I would say it's Michigan, Ohio State. Whoever wins that game will move on to the playoffs.
Yeah. Coach, what you're seeing out in Texas. Texas is at 4-2. We had Ken Capps on, and Bo Carter comes on with us. He'll be on tomorrow from the Texas State Fair, in between funnel cakes and corn dogs and turkey legs and other great fair food and all. We were talking with him Saturday right before OU in Texas in the Red River Classic. Wow, 49-0, Texas gets that win. What does that say about Texas? What does that say about Oklahoma? Brent Venables did not forget how to coach. He just inherited a team where it looks like a lot of guys went with Lincoln Riley to Southern Cal, hence their 6-0 record. But what did you take from it?
Well, there's no question when you see what's happened is Oklahoma. And I always use the vernacular when a train starts going downhill, you temporarily stop it. But until it bottoms out, you're not going to turn that train around. So Oklahoma's train is going downhill, and it is not going to get better until it hits bottom. So, where is bottom? No one knows. But, there's a lot of doubt. When that sets in, players don't make the decision to win. And players, we can say all we want to. It's the players that win, not the coaches.
Yeah.
So, again, there's so many dismantlements at Oklahoma right now. The biggest job Brent's got is putting the puzzle back together, but because there's a lot of pieces in that puzzle that are missing.
Well, you think about Oklahoma with their tradition and all that they will not let that program fall. I mean, that's 51 Big 12 or conference championships, Big 8, Big 12, whatever, 7 national championships, 7 Heismans. Tradition never graduates. Haywood Harris, SID at Tennessee, said it. And Jimmy, jump in here. I know you've got questions for Coach Sherrill. What's going on at Texas? I just think as Oklahoma and Texas get into the SEC, we're going to have some wild conversations.
Yeah, Coach, you told us back in August that your regular season routine was to go to a game every week at either a place you played, which obviously was Alabama, or that you coached. And I wanted to see if you could give us kind of a summary of the games you've gone to. And I can't imagine, not that I'm Einstein or anything, that you probably weren't at Tuscaloosa with your history at both schools, but I wanted you to kind of give us an idea of the the certain moments or highlights that you've experienced so far now that we're halfway through the regular season?
Well, when I go to a game, naturally, before the game, I like to walk around and see the offense and defensive linemen warm up. You can usually tell pretty quick who's going to win the game by watching the offense and defensive linemen and kind of get a feel of how good they are, and certainly how big they are, but how quick they are and how good they are. Then my routine is if I'm at a place that I can, then I'll go to the press box and chart the game, get a feel, and then watch the game the second half and enjoy it. But when you look at all the places, it'd be hard not to say that any place that you go to, whether it's Tuscaloosa, Texas A&M, even Mississippi State, what a last 2 weeks, Mississippi State's had in start, and the excitement, but the excitement rolls over to everybody. Those lights didn't go out in the last 2 weeks at Starkville, probably until daylight. And so you're just the pageantry of college football. Now, you certainly, for me, going to see former teammates at Alabama or going to see former players at Mississippi State and A&M, I mean, to me, it's a little different than most people are seeing former. I was at Pitt not long ago, and the same thing of seeing former players. But my routine has always been pregame, go down and watch the offense and defensive linemen of both teams warm up.
Coach, I love the way you break it down, just like when you told us about Coach Bryant's regular routine, getting up in the morning at 4 and eating breakfast out on Highway 82, at 5 a.m. And I like that structure part of it. And one thing, in watching you for so many years as a coach, just how at ease you look. You have a confidence, and your teams had that swagger. I still think the hardest hitting team you may have had was that 97 with Josh Morgan out of Warren County Central in Vicksburg, who played safety for you. I still remember the hit. Holy cow! In 2000, when he was on that 2000 team, that was a scary. You had some tough guys, but let's do this. We're going to take a quick break, and we're going to come right back because I don't want to get started, because I want you to go back and talk about something I'm noticing. And I was texting with Steve Shaw yesterday, the coordinator of NCAA officials. He's kind of busy this year. He's, again, like Santa Claus right before Christmas. This is his time of year. We're not seeing that many targeting calls, and I'm wondering what your thoughts are on that. But let's take a quick break. I want to thank all of our great sponsors like Gateway Tire and Service Centers. We go the distance for our customers and the communities where we do business. Support the Boy Scouts of America and Reforest, Mississippi. Wherever you are, private land, residential, it makes the value of your property go through the roof. We'll be right back with Coach Jackie Sherrill after this.
Red River Ford and Toyota, located in Wynne, Arkansas. If you're in the market for a new or used car, truck, or SUV, call, go online, or drop by and see them. Located 45 minutes from Memphis, go off the 4-city exit on I-40 and go north about 15 minutes on Highway 1. Easy to work with and still believe in customer service. If you live out of town, they will deliver your vehicle to you. RedRiverFordToyota.com. Just see what they can do.
Strengthen your seed zone this spring with quality tillage equipment from HAWGS Industries. Located in Cherry Valley, Arkansas, HAWGS Industries specializes in manufacturing superior equipment that will minimize your downtime and keep you working in the field. To ensure the highest quality control, all design, fabrication, and testing takes place in a 99,000 square foot manufacturing facility located right here in the heart of the Delta. Locate your nearest House equipment dealer online at houseindustriesinc.com.
House Industries, breaking ground.
Sidelines with Rob Browne. Talk sporty to me.
Rob Browne back here with you on this Thursday. Coach Jackie Sherrill joins us from, I would think, Wimberley, Texas, where you live. Jimmy Hodge is up in Knoxville. But, Coach, just in what you're seeing, and got a text just now from folks down at Auburn, said, Coach Sherrill, come on by 7:15 West Magnolia to the tailgate before the next Auburn game that you happen to be visiting. If you're going there this year or next year, whatever, everybody would love to talk with you. But I'm not seeing, just from my perspective, as many targeting calls. And I'm just, as a coach for so many years, and you're still Coach Sherrill, are you seeing fewer targeting calls? And do you think that's because the message has gotten through? Football is still going to be a tough physical game. It's a man's game. There ain't question about that. But I'm just seeing those numbers drop.
That is true.
Okay.
They're doing a much better job in really emphasizing. But, you know, as a coach, I don't know of any coach that had his players in any drill duck their head and hit with the crown of their head.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's, if you're going through the air and to make a tackle, sometimes it's going to happen. But I don't see where it's intentionally happening. And I think the officials are doing a good job. And, with the replay, they're getting it correct. Then it should be, because we shouldn't lose a player, or we shouldn't penalize a player if that player actually did not target. And but what we're not seeing is the hits of the defensive receiver going across the field on an in route or a post route, and a defensive back having the collisions that we've seen in the past. So that is good. I think the coaches are doing a great job. I think the officials now, do you want to lose, one of your best players? No. But again, I go back a long ways, and I go all the way back with Coach Bryant, and no coach ever taught me to hit with the crown of the head. You're always so. I think the techniques are proper techniques, but I do think the coaches talking about it, but the penalties that have been assessed, because no player wants to be penalized and not play. Yeah. So I think it's helped. It's there. It's good. The protocols are completely set in place, where you have the official in the stands, and it's really a former trainer or a doctor or somebody that is been in a position to know what trauma is, meaning a head trauma, what a player reacts, how he reacts when he's concussed. Yeah. And, they have the ability and responsibility to stop the game and not let the player, continue to play. Now, we know in Pro Bowl recently that, the protocol and was not followed like it should have been followed. And, but, I see in college football, I see that the doctors and the coaches and the spotter in the box have been doing a great job.
Yeah. And I'm glad to hear you say that, because I think we have Ben Troop, who was an All-American tight end for Steve Spurrier, and Coach Zook at Florida, played 5 years in the NFL, was on with us Monday. He talks about the NFL is a collision league. College in the SEC is a collision league. And it's good. We went to the CoachSafely.org big banquet over in Vestavia Hills back August 22nd there in Birmingham. Jack Crow, Coach Crow was there, Kevin Skarbinski, Lou Holt, Paul Feinbaum. It was absolutely packed, and they're trying to coach or train 80,000 coaches a year. CoachSafely.org, and Dr. Andrews is their chief medical advisor, and he was supposed to be there to speak. And surprise, Coach, it was Monday. It was the NFL preseason, and one of his NFL players had to come in for surgery, and he literally had his plane, they said, on the runway to fly to Birmingham, had to stay and do surgery. But I'm sure you've met Dr. Andrews before, and you know the value of having a great medical team. In fact, one of your former linebackers, Daniel Boyd, I think is the team orthopedic surgeon at Ole Miss now. So it's a wild world, isn't it?
Yes. A funny story. Daniel came to me in his junior year, and he had been accepted to dental school.
Wow.
And I talked him out of going to dental school and waiting and applying and going to med school. Well, he did, but he didn't get accepted to the school he wanted to go to right off the bat. So it took him an additional year to get into med school. So he wasn't very happy with me at that time, but it all worked out.
Yeah.
Because he's an excellent surgeon, and he is the team doctor for Mississippi, and he's done a great job with those players.
Yeah, absolutely. Jimmy, jump in.
Yeah, Coach, it's really ironic that you and Mike Leach have this one thing in common, is that you've both been the head coach at two different Power 5 schools, Mississippi State and Washington State. And I wanted to get your take on what Leach has done this year, because he's been a head coach at the Power 5 level for over 20 years now. And we always talked about his offense in the past in regarding to the air raid, that they really didn't emphasize the running game. Those swing passes basically sufficed for a running game. And I have been really impressed this year. And it's unusual for a coach more than 20 years into his head coaching career to really make a commitment that he has to the running game. And I've got to tell you, I've really been impressed, because their backs aren't running east and west or slashing. I mean, they're really hitting it up in there. They're running in a physical manner. And with State averaging a little, I guess, over 100 yards per game rushing, I mean, that does wonders to make that air raid passing attack even more dangerous. And I just wanted you to kind of evaluate what you've seen from State this year, because in my mind, they're only a fumble punt at their own 10-yard line from being undefeated right now, and they've been really impressive.
Yeah, well, the fumble punt against LSU completely turned the game around for LSU. But, even when Mike was at Texas Tech, the running back gained a lot of yards. You go back to Steve Spurrier, and everybody thought that Steve was throwing the ball, and he did. But also the running back, and they had one called Smith, that was pretty good. Yeah. And an awful lot of yardage. So, throwing the football, yes, they're going to throw the football. But what I'm impressed with Will is if you really look and study the game, the ball is out of his hand before the receiver is making a break. And the ability for Will and the receivers to be on that type of connection, and we can go back to last week's game with A&M and Alabama. The ball was thrown late. Did the receiver run the right route? But what Mike's done at Mississippi State is certainly done things that others haven't done, and he's not finished this year yet, because this week is a big game, but the next week going into Tuscaloosa is also a big game. So, for anybody to say Mississippi State right now has a chance to beat, and they're favored to beat Kentucky, if they beat Kentucky and they come back against Alabama and beat Alabama, then might be Coach of the Year.
Yeah. Coach, when you were at Mississippi State, I watched the facilities, just the upgrades. Leo Seal is a name that comes to mind. My dad been to many a Mississippi State football game with his friend Jan Gwynn, who you know from Memphis, and his late wife Carla. And I think about my friend Stan Jones from Starkville, who knows you and family loves you to death. And I think about when there's that lake that's outside the athletic facility near the dude and all, but what was it? You ignited a firestorm of fundraising at Mississippi State, and there's a lot of money in Mississippi. And it, as a Memphian, I feel like I'm part Mississippian, part Arkansan, part Tennessean. But I spent a lot of time in Arkansas and the Mississippi Delta. There's just a lot of money there, and an ag school like Mississippi State or Texas A&M or Auburn, there is a temporal connection of the people. It's a populist movement, but man, they've got an honors college there. My dad was telling me years ago about the architecture school. Per capita was the most well-funded in the South. They got a damn good vet school, business, accounting, finance. You really got something going there, and those people have more fun tailgating than about anybody I ever see. And they've got a beautiful, long venue on that campus. You made that happen.
Well, I've always, people talking about going to Starkville or going to Oxford.
Yeah.
And my first question is, are you taking kids?
Yeah.
And if they're taking kids, then my response would be go to Starkville, because it's a kid-friendly pregame campus atmosphere. And then if you're going to only adults, I say go to Oxford.
Yeah.
And you go into the Grove.
Yeah.
So there's two different atmosphere. But I learned a long time ago, I'd pass the architect school, and it's right by the stadium.
Yeah.
I'd see kids in the window, and this is like, 11, 12 o'clock at night.
Yeah.
And I'd come back at 7 in the morning, and the same kids would be in the same window.
Yeah.
And Galen McCullough, which was a teammate of mine at Alabama, and his son went to get his master's in architect design at Mississippi State. And he told his mom and dad, Susan and Galen, that he never went to a football game. He never really saw the campus, because every Friday the professor would give them a project that would take them all weekend to do.
Yeah.
So, when you look at interior design and architecture, A&M can compete with anybody in the country.
Yeah. I mean, Mississippi State, the architecture school there. I know my dad walked on briefly at Auburn, and he said, I was up there all night long at Dudley Hall at Auburn. Then the coaches would come in there at 5 a.m. to get us up. So I went through one spring practice. He goes, I was good, but not that good. And but his hero is Yan Cowart, who was a walk-on offensive lineman at Auburn, 82 through 85, started 3 years. And Yan made it all the way through. He's an architect now in Montgomery, and he's the lead architect on Auburn's new $91 million football-only facility. But that's a beautiful architecture building right outside the stadium. Coach, I've been to 37 football games in Starkville over the years. And some of my favorite memories, too, are having, Little Dooley's barbecue cater out there, too.
A Little Dooley's, yeah.
Yeah.
But everybody, kind of like everybody has these spots.
Yeah.
what was it in Tuscaloosa? What is it in Knoxville? What is it in Auburn? But, the college towns always have the spot to go to.
Yeah.
And, Little Dewey's was the spot if you were going to be a guest in Starkville.
Yeah.
But Auburn and Mississippi State are very, very good in interior design and architecture.
Yeah, it is. And Coach, we're going to take a break here in a minute. We're going to come back. I want to ask you about a few of the other things going on in college football, but something else I've seen happening. You went to A&M, just unbelievable support out there. The money, everybody out there has money. The SEC, you're talking 75, 80 million a year will be coming in the coming years with these new TV contracts. And I want to ask you your thoughts about Disney and ESPN coming into the conference after the 23 season. The way CBS does it, they don't pay much. I think $55 million, but it's such a big production when CBS does it because that's the only game that they're covering. And you watch games on ESPN, they're talking about the next game, but trying to get on from the game where they currently are. But I think that what we're seeing is, again, everybody has money, but you've got to have the right people in leadership positions. You're still involved with A&M, and I'm sure you're still involved with Mississippi State and Pitt and every school that you've ever coached at. Iowa State, and you were at Washington State that 1 year. You leave a footprint, fingerprints everywhere that you go as a coach. But there's something, your memory of your career, it's incredible. And I think as fans, we need to tip our hat to you, all the coaches, whether you were a rival or our coach or whatever, because these are treasured times when you're on our show. I can tell you this. And so when we get back, we're going to go back and just kind of let you give your thoughts on the college game that is today, because I think going back 40 and 50 years ago, it was incredibly big. It's just getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And a lot of people have tried to write a narrative that we've ruined the game and all, but we've been through a lot worse and we've made it, and people find excuses to win.
No, we haven't ruined it. The NCAA has.
Exactly. And that's what we're going to talk about. So let's take a quick break. We're going to be back with Coach Jackie Sherrill. Jimmy Hodge and I having an honorable interview here. This is great. Right after this quick commercial break.
Red River Ford and Toyota, located in Wynne, Arkansas. If you're in the market for a new or used car, truck, or SUV, call, go online, or drop by and see them. Located 45 minutes from Memphis, go off the 4-city exit on I-40 and go north about 15 minutes on Highway 1. Easy to work with and still believe in customer service. If you live out of town, they will deliver your vehicle to you. RedRiverFordToyota.com. Just see what they can do.
Strengthen your seed zone this spring with quality tillage equipment from House Industries. Located in Cherry Valley, Arkansas, House Industries specializes in manufacturing superior equipment that will minimize your downtime and keep you working in the field. To ensure the highest quality control, all design, fabrication, and testing takes place in a 99,000 square foot manufacturing facility located right here in the heart of the Delta. Locate your nearest House equipment dealer online at houseindustriesinc.com.
House Industries, breaking ground.
Sidelines with Rob Browne. Talk sporty to me.
Coach Sherrill, we got started right before the break about the NCAA. And again, I'm wondering, what are your thoughts about their role going forward? We've got the transfer portal that we're dealing with, NIL that we're dealing with, yet the fans are, own college football in the sense that how much will the fans take? But I want to know what you think, because you've had experiences, dealings with the NCAA. I've shaken my head for decades over some of the decisions that they make. But it all starts with leadership, and we just don't have that.
Well, if you go all the way back, the NCAA owned everything. and were in control. You go back in 1907, well, it's before that, the players, it's called the Pell Grant today, and that's for players or people that, qualify. Back then, it was called BEOG, but there was a player that was a track star at Kansas. He's an attorney in Kansas City now. He sued the NCAA because his BEOG grant, he was not getting his full grant. And so he sued because part of the grant was going to the school. And that's what Congress put the BEOG grant in place for.
Yeah.
It was help the needy go to college that qualify.
Yeah.
And so he won that suit. But fast forward, the NCAA owned all television rights, meaning they decided who was on, of course, with the networks, decided who was on, win the games. And the College Football Association, Chuck Dennis, helped start it, but Georgia and Oklahoma sued the NCAA for proprietary rights. The NCAA lost, which meant now the proprietary rights, i.e. television rights, and all your clothing rights, meaning at that time, the percentages offered shirts, jerseys, and other things went to the NCAA. So when Georgia and Oklahoma sued for proprietary rights, then television came back to the universities and conferences. So at that time, then you started with the networks, and all of a sudden here comes ESPN with Thursday night football. And of course you had ABC, CBS, and NBC, but ESPN kind of took it over, and all of a sudden here comes Fox. So fast forward where we are today is you have the SEC and ACC with Fox, ESPN, the Big Ten, the Pac-12 is, and Big 8 with Fox. And what you have is CBS cherry picks games, and they pay a premium for those games. Yeah. But as we know, it's called eyeballs. And when you have Alabama, Tennessee, for example, or A&M, Alabama, they're going to be on CBS. And that, again, they get them their first priority because they pay the most money for that particular game.
Yes.
Now, you have Texas, Oklahoma came into the SEC. Now, why did that happen? And again, this is my opinion. Yeah. But the Longhorn Network was ESPN was paying $15 million a year, 10-year contract. They're halfway in, so there's $75 million left on the table. But if they could get Texas into the SEC, they don't have to pay that. So bottom line, they're saving money. But Texas, again, this is my opinion, Texas would not go by themselves. They would say you had to have somebody go with them. Well, the most logical team would be Oklahoma. So ESPN and SEC got Oklahoma and Texas to come into the SEC. So what does that mean? That means that now ESPN jumped a leg up on Fox, and because of the eyeballs. All of a sudden, here's Fox that goes and gets UCLA and USC. Yeah. Well, there's only 14% of the whole Pac-12 footprint that are college football fans. Now you take LA out of there. Will the Pac-12 survive? It's not going to survive like one of the big boys. It's not going to be the Big Ten. It's not going to be the ACC, SEC. It's not going to be in those two conferences, especially the SEC and the Big Ten. So this again is my opinion. But I said in 1989 that we would end up with 4 major conferences with 16 to 20 teams in there because of television and eyeballs. Now, I think we're moving to a NFL model, which we're going to have 40 to 60 teams or 30 to 60 or 50, but we're going to have a limited number of teams that will be like the NFL, AFL. We'll have divisions and we'll play to a national championship, very much like the Super Bowl. Yeah. Now, when that happens, then, I mean, instead of what the television rights are right now, you can probably double those.
That is a lot of money. And SEC's talking about, we heard initially the Disney deal with ESPN, coach, would be $350 million. We're hearing now when Texas and Oklahoma come in, it could double that. And then I even heard the B word, the $1 billion contract word.
Well, that's what the Big Ten.
Yeah.
The Big Ten, I think, was $1.1 billion.
Yeah.
And certainly with UCLA and Southern Cal, it'll go higher. But there's no question that the SEC will be over $1 billion. So each team in the SEC will be, 80 to 100 million that they're going to get off of television.
Mm. And you think about, there's a lot you can do with that money. And then, of course, we got other things that we're working through, NIL and whatever. But Coach, you in the locker room in the NFL, it's pretty obvious. Some players make more than other players. Some players make more than the head coach. If you were,
where we're headed, and the NCAA could have, in my opinion, taken care of this a long time ago, of coming out and saying every player will make the same, regardless if it's an offensive lineman or if it's your quarterback. Now, that doesn't keep them from going outside, but from the universities, from the conferences, everybody will be paid the same. And I feel, in my opinion, that's going to happen, that everybody will end up getting a stipend. Years ago, we got a stipend of $15. So, but that stipend today will be in the thousands.
Yeah, exactly. You think about Tommy Tuberville said he and Joe Manchin from West Virginia are trying to work on something that would be uniform across 50 states. We're not talking, socialism here, but something uniform. Because you go back in 1994, Coach, remember athletic dorms were outlawed because it was an unfair recruiting advantage. And then the media guides, you couldn't have all color pictures in your football media guide.
Yeah, it was an unfair advantage to the Big Ten and Pac-12 or Pac-10 back then, because they did not have athletic dormitories, because the university would not allow it, because the universities felt that the athletes should be just like normal students. Well, what that did is the NCAA passed and had the Pac-10, the Big Ten, and the Mid-America, and I think they won by 3 votes, but it gave them the advantage because it was based on the meals were based on the cost of your meal ticket. and every university has 21 meals per week. Now they know they don't have Saturday night, Saturday night, Sunday morning, and Sunday at noon. Most are home, so they and every university tries to keep their meal ticket as low as they can to help the cost of attendance. So when they passed that, it was based on whatever your meal ticket was, i.e. at Mississippi State, our meal ticket was $3 for breakfast, $5 for lunch, and $7 for dinner. So you tell me where a 300 plus offensive can go eat for $3.
I mean, that, Coach, I've never had it. Jimmy, I've never heard someone explain it so well. That, Coach, thank you, because my phone's blowing up. People are going, $3, that won't even get you a Happy Meal.
No. And so it created the advantage, regardless of what people are saying. Every conference, and same thing with Sankey, which has done a great job. He will tell you his job is to position the SEC and do the best job of helping the SEC be the top conference in the country.
Yeah.
Well, and that's in a lot of different ways. So whether it's television contracts or whatever.
Yeah. Well,
but as we talk about the transfer portal, there was an attorney out of Arkansas by the name of Morris, and a great attorney, graduated #1 in his class, and he handled all the players' transfers. Well, the NCAA never beat him, so the NCAA hired him. And he worked for the NCAA, and that was his role. But then he left the NCAA. He's back in Arkansas and in his own practice. So we all can surmise why he left, because he did not feel that the NCAA was helping or serving the athletes. And that's what he wanted to do, is to be able to help and serve the athletes.
Yeah, and that's the story of the NCAA. Look, Coach, this has been just another incredible time with you on the show, and we're just running out of time. And I tell you, we can listen to you, forever, because you're making so much sense when you're on here and you look at it from a different viewpoint than Jimmy and I. We've never been a head coach, but you stay on top of this. And last thing, Coach, what games you going to this weekend?
Well, I've got a debate, but I may slip over to Tennessee, or I may go somewhere else. But the Tennessee-Alabama game, to me, is the most intriguing game this week.
Yeah. We're heading up there today, heading up to Knoxville. We've got cousin Mark up there. He's got 10 season tickets, so he's invited us to come up there, because my wife's a Vol for life, and I hate that I'm not going to be in Oxford to see my Auburn Tigers play, but I think the whole focus of the football world is on Knoxville. And but Coach, how do people follow you or keep up with you on a regular basis with what you're putting out during the week? And we'll let you go.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much, Coach Jackie Sherrill. Jimmy, I tell you what, man, he laid out that case with what's going on with the NCAA. And that's the problem. There's no leadership, Jimmy, in the NCAA. We've got a couple of minutes left, but and then you look at the size of these TV deals, the money that is out there. It's more than we've ever seen. And I just think that schools, everybody has money, and everybody has money to pay buyouts for coaches and all like that. So, Jimmy, your takeaway from what he said about the NCAA in about a minute.
Yeah, well, the NCAA let it be known last year that they're going to leave all these decisions going forward to the Power Five conferences because they don't have the manpower to conduct all these investigations. At least going forward, they're just going to make decisions on the investigations they've been conducting over the last 3 or 4 years. So, they're kind of stepping away from it, and that's kind of where we're going. And you could see that even over the past month, this committee of managers, in other words, the presidents of Power Five universities, kind of took the lead from the conference commissioners and just on their own declared that we're going to put this college football playoff expansion to 12 teams in effect for the 2024 season. So again, it's not going to be the NCAA involved in all these power moves like they've been able to do in the past. I think they're just going to hang on until the NCAA basketball tournament contract expires in 2032, and we'll see how they're involved after that.
So they'll be making enough money to keep the lights on at the NCAA headquarters up in Indianapolis. We know that. And by the way, the NCAA headquarters is filled with Big Ten graduates. Hence, it's in Indianapolis. Now, the Big 10 headquarters is in Chicago, Lake Forest, or whatever.
Rosemont.
Rosemont. Okay. All right. But anyway, great show today. We got a great one in line for tomorrow. More college football talk. Hey, we most often see the face of Christ, and the least among us go out and help people with the expectation of getting nothing in return. You want to help the people in Florida and the Carolinas from the hurricane? Support the American Red Cross. Have a great day, everybody. We'll see you tomorrow.